My name is Zak Bagans. For years, I've investigated some of the darkest, most haunted locations in the world, but there are a few places that don't just feel haunted, they feel alive. Blackwood Manor is one of those places. Hidden deep in the woods outside a small town called Briar Hollow, this house has been abandoned for almost a century, but the forest never reclaimed it. The trees around it grow twisted and bent, like they're leaning away from the property. No vines crawl up its walls, no moss clings to its stone. It's as if nature itself refuses to touch this place. Locals don't talk about Blackwood Manor in full sentences. They say things like, the windows watch, the floors listen, the house remembers. Most people avoid the hill it sits on entirely, especially after dark, but this is exactly the kind of place I'm drawn to. And on a cold night in late October, I brought a small team with me to find out what still lives inside this forgotten mansion. I walked up to the rusted iron gate first. The metal was so cold it almost burned my hand when I touched it. I just stood there for a moment, staring at the house through the fog, its broken windows, its rotting frame. And yet, somewhere beneath all of that decay, I could feel intelligence, awareness. I said out loud, more to the house than to anyone else. Once we step through this gate, the house is going to know we're here. Behind me was Elias, our cameraman and researcher, and Naomi, our audio specialist. Elias tried to shake off the tension with a nervous laugh. "Zak, it's just a building," he said. "Old wood, bad wiring, creepy history." I didn't take my eyes off the dark rows of windows staring back at us. "It's not the building I'm worried about," I told him. "It's what remembers us." Naomi has always been sensitive to energy. She's the kind of person who feels a room the second she walks into it, and I could tell right away something was already affecting her. Her breathing changed. Her shoulders tensed. "It already knows," she whispered. "I can feel it." We pushed open the gate. The rusted hinges screamed like something trapped and angry. The path up to the house was lined with dead rose bushes. Their thorns reached out over the walkway like skeletal fingers. Fog rolled across the ground, but it didn't move like natural fog. It moved in slow, thick waves, almost like it was pushing itself toward us on purpose. I had Elias start recording immediately. October 28th, 11:14 p.m. This is Zak Bagans with the Nightfall Research Group. We're entering Blackwood Manor for a full overnight investigation. Through the camera's viewfinder, Elias picked up movement, a quick darting shadow at the edge of the frame. He started to call it out, but I stopped him. "Don't acknowledge anything yet," I told him quietly. "This house listens." When we finally reached the front door, all three of us just stood there for a second. The wood was warped and split from years of storms, but the metal door knocker, a wolf's head, looked like it had been polished yesterday. No rust, no corrosion. That's impossible for a place like this. Naomi stiffened suddenly. She turned her head like someone had just whispered into her ear. "Zak," she said, her voice shaking, "someone's behind us." Elias swung the camera around, but all we saw was fog. The path behind us was swallowed completely. No shapes, no sound, no footsteps. I reached out and laid my hand on the door. The second my palm touched the wood, I felt a vibration. Deep, subtle, like something on the other side had just opened its eyes. The fog around us seemed to pull inward. And then on its own, the front door slowly opened. The air that rushed out from inside the house was thick, cold, and stale. It smelled like damp soil and old iron, like a grave that had just been cracked open. Naomi put a hand over her mouth. "It wants us to come in," she whispered. I stepped across the threshold first. "No," I said. "It wants to see what we'll do." Inside, the foyer looked like time had stopped. There was dust everywhere, but the furniture was still in place. The massive chandelier hung above us, its crystal pieces dull but intact. Heavy curtains sagged over tall windows like rotting skin. The house felt paused, waiting. I could feel eyes on us, even though no one was there. "Document everything," I told them. "This house is only going to show us what it wants us to see." Above the fireplace was a large portrait of a man I recognized from our research. Alistair Blackwood, the original owner and builder of the manor. Sharp features, intense eyes. that almost seemed too real for a painting. The plaque below it read, Alistair Blackwood 1850 et 1906, Master of the Veil, Keeper of the Door. I read those words out loud. Keeper of the Door. Before I could finish processing what that meant, we heard it. A soft tapping sound from upstairs. 3 taps. A pause. 3 more taps. Naomi checked her recorder. That's not random, she said. That's patterned. Then we heard a stair-step creak by itself, slowly, like a single weight had just pressed down on it. Naomi looked up. It's walking, she said. I aimed my flashlight at the top of the stairs, but I didn't go up yet. Not yet, I said. We stay on this floor for now. The house wants us to chase it. We're not playing into that. We moved into the parlor to the right of the foyer. The second I opened those double doors, the air changed. It dropped in temperature. It felt heavier. The room was a mess. Books were scattered all over the floor, but they weren't randomly thrown. The torn out pages had been arranged in a spiral shape that wound slowly inward toward the center of the room. Naomi crouched down, scanning the pages with a flashlight. These were placed like this, she said. Not tossed. Someone took time to arrange them. I looked at the walls behind the shattered bookshelves and saw faint carvings in the plaster. Symbols, circles and lines intersecting in complex patterns. I know these, I said. These are ritual markings, summoning, binding, control. Alias swallowed hard. Summoning what? I didn't answer because something else caught my attention. On the far wall, partially hidden behind torn wallpaper, was a small wooden door, about the size of a crawl space. The wood was old, but the hinges were new. Naomi's voice dropped. That door wasn't in the original floor plan, Zak. I checked. That wall wasn't supposed to open. I walked over and grabbed the handle. Naomi reached out quickly. Don't open that. I'm serious, Zak. There's something behind it. I pulled it open. A narrow passage stretched out into total darkness. The walls were made of black stone, smooth and clean. Too clean for a house that had been closed for nearly 100 years. And from somewhere deep inside that passage, we heard it, breathing, slow, deep, wet. This wasn't airflow. It wasn't the house settling. It was breathing. Elias took a step back. Tell me that's some kind of draft, he said. No draft sounds like that, Naomi whispered. I pointed my flashlight into the corridor. The darkness swallowed the beam completely. I spoke into the black. Is someone in there? The breathing stopped. For a moment, the entire house went silent. Then, in a voice that sounded like it was inches from my face, we heard it. You returned. We all froze. Elias muttered, Zak, we've never been here before. But something about that voice sent a jolt straight through me. It wasn't talking about us like we were new. I felt this sudden cold understanding sink in. No, I said quietly. He's not wrong. Naomi stared at me. What do you mean? I kept my eyes on that darkness. Whatever is in this house, I said, remembers every soul that's ever crossed this threshold. Every ritual, every scream, every last breath. This place doesn't just hold energy, it keeps it. My flashlight flickered once. The breathing started again, closer, much closer. The breathing kept getting louder, slow, dragging, deliberate. I stepped back from the small door in the parlor wall, keeping my flashlight aimed toward the pitch black corridor. The beam still wouldn't penetrate more than a few inches. It was like the dark was swallowing the light itself. Naomi whispered, Zak, close it, please. But something held me there. Something wanted me to listen. I tightened my grip on the doorframe. Talk to me, I said. Who are you? Silence. Then the breathing stopped again, cut off like a switch had been flipped. That was worse. When something intelligent goes quiet, it's not retreating. It's waiting. Behind me, Elias shifted nervously. Zak, this whole room feels like it's holding its breath. I reached into the darkness one more time, not physically, but with my voice. Why does this passage exist? Who built it? A voice responded, faint but unmistakably human. Blackwood? Elias lowered the camera for a moment. That was a name, he whispered. It said Blackwood. Naomi backed away from the little door, shaking her head. No, no, that did not sound human. That sounded hollow. She was right. There was something about the tone, like the voice was speaking through a long tunnel, its shape warped, a voice stretched too thin. I gently closed the small door. But the second the latch clicked shut, the chandelier in the foyer began to sway violently. All three of us rushed out of the parlor. The massive glass fixtures swung back and forth like the house had been shaken from the foundation. Dust rained from the ceiling. The metal chain groaned under the weight. Elias whispered, "There was no wind, none." Naomi clutched her recorder. "It's reacting to something." We woke it up. I stepped beneath the chandelier, watching it rock overhead. "Alistair Blackwood," I said aloud, staring up at the portrait on the wall. "Did you build that passage? Did you summon whatever is still in this house?" The chandelier abruptly stopped, completely, like an invisible hand had grabbed it mid-swing. The silence that followed was suffocating. That's when we heard footsteps above us, slow, measured, moving across the second floor like someone was pacing. The boards creaked with each heavy step. This wasn't a settling house. This was weight, intentional, rhythmic. I felt the energy shift around us. Something was moving with purpose. I looked at my team. We're going upstairs. Elias swallowed nervously but nodded. Naomi didn't move. "Zak," she said quietly, "I don't want to go up there. Something upstairs is watching us." I put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I know, and we need to find out what it is." We started climbing the staircase. Halfway up, the air changed. It felt thicker, heavier, like the pressure in the house was rising. My flashlight flickered again. Elias's camera began to glitch, and when we reached the landing, we all froze. The second floor hallway stretched out before us, long, narrow, lined with portraits whose eyes seemed to follow us, but that wasn't what stopped us in our tracks. Every door on the second floor was wide open. Earlier, when we checked upstairs briefly before sunset, they were all closed. Naomi whispered, No, Zak, someone opened these. We weren't up here long enough for wind or drafts to..." "It wasn't the wind," I said. "It was waiting for us." We stood there in silence as the cold seeped into our bones. Then, from the first open doorway on the left, we heard a single sound, a soft knock from inside the room. I motioned for Elias to get closer. He raised his camera, and we moved slowly down the hallway toward the sound. The room was a former study, massive desk, crumbling bookshelves, rotting curtains. A thick layer of dust coated everything. I stepped inside first. Immediately, the temperature dropped. My breath fogged in front of me. Naomi's audio recorder spiked. "Zak, it's picking up EMF fluctuations. This room is active." I approached the desk. On top of it lay an old leather-bound journal. The cover was cracked and brittle. A quill rested beside it, as if someone had put it down only moments before we entered. "This belonged to Alistair Blackwood," I said. I opened it carefully. The pages were filled with drawings, symbols, circles, handwritten incantations. But the deeper I flipped into the journal, the more chaotic the handwriting became. Words scratched out, ink smeared. Paragraphs repeated over and over. And then I found something that made my stomach drop. A crude sketch of the exact small door downstairs. Above it, scrawled in frantic handwriting, "The door must stay sealed. It remembers my name." Naomi covered her mouth. "Oh my God, Zak, that passage wasn't for storage, it was containment." Elias leaned closer to look at the page. Why would Blackwood build something that dangerous inside his own home? I traced the sketch with my thumb. "He didn't build it to use it," I said. "He built it to trap something." Suddenly, the study door slammed shut behind us. Naomi screamed. Elias cursed under his breath. I rushed to the door. It wouldn't budge. "No, Zak, it locked us in," Elias shouted. Then the lights went out. Total darkness. The temperature plunged like we had stepped into a freezer. I could hear the house groaning, settling, shifting around us. But beneath the noise, something else moved. Slow steps, dragging across the wooden floor, not inside the room with us. But directly outside the door, a voice whispered through the dark. You opened it. My pulse hammered in my ears. Who are you? I demanded. Silence. Then, closer right against the other side of the door, the house remembers. The doorknob began to turn on its own. Naomi grabbed my arm. She was shaking. Zak, it's coming in. I held the door with all my strength. Elias, light, now. He flicked on the infrared camera. The room was washed in grainy green light. We all froze. In the far corner of the study, something was standing there, a tall, slender shape. Motionless, black as pitch, no features, no face. Just the silhouette of a man watching us. I whispered, do not move. The figure tilted its head slowly, like it was trying to understand us. Then it took one step forward. The floorboard groaned under its weight. Naomi's recorder exploded with static. The air around us tightened like a fist. Elias whispered, Zak, that thing is not human. The figure took another step. I raised my voice. Stay back. It paused. And then it disappeared, like smoke collapsing in on itself. The door unlocked instantly. Naomi yanked it open and rushed into the hallway, gasping for air. Elias followed, shaking. I stepped out last, scanning the hall. The air was still, but I knew we were no longer alone in this house. Something had woken up, something that wasn't going to let us leave. And somewhere behind us, the study door slowly creaked shut. The moment that study door closed behind us, the entire second floor fell silent, too silent, like the house was holding its breath again, deciding what to do next. Naomi leaned against the hallway wall, trying to steady her breathing. Elias kept the camera pointed down the corridor, but his hands were trembling. I took a slow breath and said, we're not done here. The house is shifting its focus. It's circling us. And I meant it. This wasn't random activity. This was strategy. Something pushed us out of that study. It didn't want us inside anymore. We need to check the master bedroom, I said. That room belonged to Blackwood. If there's anything in this house that can explain what we're facing, it'll be there. We walked down the long hallway. Every step felt like we were sinking deeper into the manor, into its memory. The air grew colder, heavier, more suffocating the closer we got to the end of the hall. The master bedroom door was slightly open, just enough to show darkness inside. Zak, Naomi whispered. That door wasn't open earlier. Exactly. The house was guiding us. Whether it wanted to reveal something or trap us, I wasn't sure yet. I pushed the door open. The bedroom was enormous. Moonlight poured in through tall, cracked windows, illuminating dust drifting through the air like falling ash. A massive four-poster bed sat in the center of the room, covered in a thick, torn sheet. The smell of old wood and mildew hung heavy, but something was off. The temperature was wrong, too cold. A sudden, unnatural drop. Elias rubbed his arms. Zak, it feels like we stepped into a freezer. Naomi's audio recorder spiked again. It's registering movement all over the room. I stepped farther inside. Every instinct in me screamed that we weren't alone. On the far wall above an old dresser hung a cracked mirror. As I approached it, my reflection wavered, distorted, almost like the mirror didn't want to show me properly. I whispered, Blackwood, what did you do in this room? Naomi pointed her flashlight toward the bed. On the sheets, symbols had been carved into the fabric, deep cuts, circular patterns, the same ones we saw downstairs. Someone carved these during a ritual, she said, repeatedly. This wasn't done in anger, it was done with purpose. Elias filmed the symbols? What kind of ritual? I scanned the room, my skin crawling. Binding, I said. Protection or imprisonment. An imprisonment of what? Naomi asked. I didn't answer, because something in the corner of the room caught my attention. A chair. Ordinary, wooden, old, but wrong. It faced the bed directly, as if someone used to sit there and watch. The wood was smooth in certain spots, worn down by years of someone's hands gripping the arms. Someone sat there, often watching something or someone. I kneeled beside the chair and touched the armrest. Elias asked, "What are you sensing?" "This isn't where someone sat," I said slowly. "This is where someone waited." Naomi shivered. "For what?" Before I could answer, the mirror cracked loudly behind us. All three of us spun around. A fresh fracture slashed across the glass like something had struck it from inside. And then a face appeared in the reflection. Not Mina, not Naomi's, not Elias, a man's face. Sharp features, sunken eyes, mouth slightly open as if whispering. It wasn't a full apparition, just a reflection, but it was unmistakably Alistair Blackwood. Naomi gasped, "Oh my God, Zak." I stepped closer. "Blackwood, is that you?" The reflection's mouth widened, stretched too far. An unnatural grin tearing across its face. Then the entire mirror shattered onto the floor. The house groaned, a deep, resonant vibration traveling through the wood beneath our feet like something inside the walls was stirring. Naomi backed up toward the door. "Zak, we need to leave this room, now." But I wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. On the dresser, half hidden beneath dust and glass fragments, was an old leather notebook, smaller than the journal in the study. A personnel diary. I picked it up. The cover bore the initials AB. "Elias," I said, "get this on camera." I opened the diary. The handwriting was neater than the journal downstairs. These entries were older, written before Blackwood descended into whatever madness consumed him. One entry read, "The presence grows stronger. It follows me now. It knows when I sleep." Another, "I hear it behind the walls. It whispers through the cracks. It wants a name." The next page was smeared, but a single sentence remained clear. "If the door opens, the house will remember." I closed the diary slowly. Naomi whispered, "Zak, it knows we opened the door." Before I could respond, the bedroom door slammed shut. We all jumped. Elias ran to the door, pushing on it. "It's locked. Zak, it locked us in again." "No, not locked. Held." Something pressed against the other side. Breathing. Slow. Deep. And then a scratch. Long. Dragging. Right across the door. Naomi pulled back, shaking. "It's outside. It followed us." I raised my voice. "What do you want from us?" The scratching stopped. Then a whisper seeped through the keyhole. "Return." Elias stepped back, pointing the camera at the door. "Return what?" "Return who?" The whisper came again, louder. "Return him." A cold realization ran through me. "It's not talking about us," I said quietly. "It's talking about Blackwood." Naomi covered her mouth. "The house wants him back." Suddenly, the heavy wardrobe in the corner tipped forward violently, crashing onto the floor inches from us. Dust erupted into the air. Elias stumbled backward. The house wasn't warning us. It was hurting us. I grabbed Naomi's arm. "Move. We're getting out of this room." We pushed on the door together. At first it wouldn't budge, something was still holding it shut, but after a few seconds of pressure, the resistance suddenly disappeared. The door swung open so fast Naomi almost fell through it. The hallway outside was pitch black. My flashlight flickered, then died. A cold wind rushed past us like someone sprinting down the hall. Elias said, "Zak, something's moving, right now." I listened carefully. Soft footsteps echoed in the darkness, running, leading us toward the end of the hall, toward a door we hadn't opened yet. The attic, I felt my stomach tighten. Whatever woke up in this house, it's drawing us upstairs. Naomi clutched her recorder. "Zak, there's something up there, something waiting." I exhaled slowly. "We follow it." Elias looked at me like I was insane. "Are you serious?" "Yes," I said. "We need to end this tonight." We walked toward the attic door. With every step, the air grew colder. And from behind the door, we heard something. Not breathing, not footsteps, whispering, hundreds of whispers. Layered, desperate, crying, begging. Naomi whispered, "Zak, don't open that door." I gripped the handle The metal was ice cold. And on the other side, something pressed its weight against the wood, waiting for me to let it out. My hand tightened around the attic door handle. Cold metal. Too cold, like it had been sitting in ice. Behind the door, the whispers swirled like a storm, hundreds of voices overlapping, dissolving into one another, rising and falling in waves. It sounded like people trapped just beyond the wood, reaching, pleading, trying to push through. Naomi whispered, "Zak, please, don't." But I had to. Whatever was pulling the strings inside this house, whatever was using the walls, the shadows, the air itself, I needed to face it tonight. Right now, I turned the handle, the latch clicked, the voices stopped. That silence was worse than anything that came before it. I pushed the attic door open. A wave of cold air blasted down the stairs like something exhaled into my face. My flashlight flickered back to life, weak, trembling light. I took the first step. The wood groaned underneath me, like the staircase was complaining. Elias stayed right behind me with the camera. Naomi followed slowly, clutching her recorder against her chest. We reached the top. The attic stretched out like a cavern, huge, pitch black, except for what our lights touched. Dust hung in the air like fog. Old furniture shapes loomed in the darkness, tables, trunks, broken chairs, mannequins draped in shredded cloth. And in the center of the attic was a large circle burned into the wooden floorboards. Symbols carved into it, deep, violent, the same symbols from the bed, the same from the parlor wall, the same from Blackwood's journals. Elias whispered, "Zak, this was a ritual chamber." I stepped closer. My boots stopped just inches from the burned circle. The energy hit me like a physical force pressure, as if the air itself was pushing back against my chest, telling me, "Do not cross this line." Naomi shivered violently. "Something's in there," she whispered, right in the center, watching us. Elias zoomed in with the camera. There's nothing in my viewfinder, but the temperature. Zak, it's dropping fast. I crouched at the edge of the circle. "Alistair Blackwood," I said aloud, "what did you summon?" Silence. Then a soft thumping sound came from the far corner of the attic. We all spun toward it. Another thump. Closer. Slow. Deliberate. Something was moving toward us. Naomi whispered, "Zak, it's crawling." My flashlight beam trembled as we searched the corner. And then a figure crawled into the light. A man, thin, bent unnaturally at the limbs, like his joints were broken. His skin was gray, stretched tight, eyes hollow sockets, mouth hanging open. His fingers dug into the wood as he dragged himself forward. He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a shadow. He was physical. Elias gasped, "Oh my God, Zak, that's a body." "No," I said, stepping back. "It's not." The thing stopped just outside the circle. Its head lifted, and when it stared at me with those empty sockets, I knew this was Blackwood, or what was left of him, not alive, not dead, kept in this attic for God knows how long. Naomi began to sob quietly. "He's trapped. Zak, he's trapped inside this place. The ritual, it didn't summon something, it took him." The corpse, if you could even call it that, lifted one shaking hand and pointed toward the burned circle. Elias whispered, "What does he want?" My stomach tightened. "He wants us to open it," I said. "No," Naomi cried. "No, Zak, don't. Whatever's in that circle, that's what caused all this. Don't break the seal." She was right. Blackwood wanted release, but something darker wanted escape. The corpse twitched violently, like an invisible hand yanked its limbs. Bones cracked. The jaw snapped open wider than humanly possible, stretching the skin around it. A guttural voice poured out of the corpse's mouth, wrong, layered, ancient. "Open the door." The attic groaned around us. Boards warped, walls shuddered. The entire house trembled, reacting to that voice. Naomi stumbled back, covering her ears. "Zak, it's inside him, it's using him, it's not Blackwood anymore." The thing lunged. Not fast, just sudden enough to knock Elias sideways. He crashed into a pile of wooden crates, his light spinning across the ceiling. I stepped forward, shouting, "Stop! Show yourself!" The corpse froze mid-movement. Then it rose, straight up, limbs dangling, head drooping, lifted by nothing. A cold wind spiraled around the attic, circling us, bending the shadows, blowing dust into violent swarms. And then a voice filled the attic. Not through the corpse, not through the air, through the entire house. He opened the door. "So you will open the rest." Naomi collapsed to her knees. Elias aimed the camera at the floating corpse, terrified. I stood my ground. "Who are you?" I yelled. "What are you?" The voice came again, this time behind me. "We were here before him, before the wood, before the stone, and now we remember you." Elias whispered, "Zak, it knows your name." The corpse suddenly dropped to the floor like a sack of stone. Bones shattered on impact. The house shook. Then, every whisper we heard earlier came rushing back at once. Hundreds of voices, screaming, weeping, begging, cursing. The burned circle lit up faint, glowing red like embers waking inside the wood. The attic was no longer just active. It was alive. Naomi screamed, "Zak, we have to get out now." The floorboards inside the circle splintered open as if claws tore up through them. Black smoke poured out, thick and oily, twisting into an impossible shape. A head formed, not human, not animal, just a silhouette of hunger. The house groaned again, louder now, as if it was straining to contain what had been locked beneath its floorboards for a century. The smoke surged toward me. I grabbed Naomi's arm, pulled her up, and yelled, "Go downstairs now." Elias was already backing toward the stairway, the camera shaking violently. We raced down the attic steps. The door slammed behind us with such force the walls rattled. The whispers chased us down the hallway, echoing off the wood. We sprinted downstairs, past the open rooms, past the portraits whose eyes now looked alive with distress or warning. The front door loomed ahead of us. But when I reached for it, it wouldn't move. The house held it shut, Naomi sobbed. "Zak, it won't let us leave." I slammed my shoulder against the door. "You do not own us," I shouted into the house. The whispers shrieked. Something cracked above us, heavy, violent, and the chandelier dropped from the ceiling, smashing into the foyer floor inches from our feet. I hit the door again. It swung open. We burst out into the freezing night air. Fog swallowed us instantly. Elias nearly dropped the camera as we sprinted down the path. Only when we crossed the rusted gate did the whispers stop. Only then did the house fall silent again. We collapsed on the road, gasping for breath. Behind us, Blackwood Manor stood motionless, dark, still. Watching, Naomi wiped her face with shaking hands. "Zak, what was that thing?" I stared at the house. "I don't know what it was," I said quietly, "but Blackwood didn't summon it." Elias looked at me. "Then where did it come from?" I swallowed hard. "From this land, from the walls, from the darkness here long before this house was ever built." A long silence followed. Then I finished the only way I could. "Blackwood Manor isn't haunted," I said. "It's possessed. And whatever lives inside that house is still waiting for the next door to open." The wind blew through the trees, and behind the broken windows of the manor, a single light flickered on, as if something inside was awake again, watching, remembering, waiting